Welcome to Silence By. This is our quiet space where we can finally exhale and speak our truth. This is a space for those silenced by guilt, shame, fear, family, religion, expectations, you name it. It's a place where you can speak your truth safely and honestly. We'll share real stories by real people, sometimes anonymously, but always with care. At the end of each letter, Gabby, our Lady of Wisdom, will give us some good advice so we can heal and grow. We want you to know not only does your story matter, but your voice also matters. All right, so let's get to the letter for this episode. And here we go. All right, so give me just a moment. I tell you, my editing is not the best, but I'm still working through it and learning. All right, so after reading this letter, it did kind of remind me of Alice Walker's novel, The Color Purple, also a movie. And so I'm going to do my 15 seconds of fame, my 15 seconds of acting, and then we'll jump into the letter. So here we go. As I read the letter, this is what I thought. All my life, I had to fight. I had to fight my daddy. I had to fight my uncles. I had to fight my brothers. A girl child ain't safe in a family of men's, but I never thought I had to fight in my own house. I loves Harpo. God knows I do. But I kill him dead before I let him beat me. Okay, so I should put some sound tracks in the back of clapping. All right, so I just figured I'd add that because that's what ran across my mind when I read the letter. But let's get on to the letter. And this is kind of a serious letter, so I'm going to be a little bit more serious and of course handle this with care. So, the letter is, Dear Gabby, as a young child, maybe even a teenager, I remember having to fight boys from popping the back of my training bra or grabbing my butt. Before I learned what it felt like to be protected and treated like a girl, I remember having to punch boys in the back with all my might to try to make them stop touching me in ways that didn't feel good. It wasn't a fight, but it definitely wasn't funny. I remember having my menstrual cycle at an early age before I really knew what it was or how to behave. That rite of passage seems like it should mark womanhood and being able to give birth. But why was I starting mine at the young age of 9? I was a kid myself, still playing with Barbie dolls. On the days that I had my cycle, I wish I could stay home in bed, or if I was lucky, just become invisible. This way, no one would notice me, or even worse, notice any leakage if my pad slipped out and messed up my clothes. I would wrap my jacket around me and hide any wardrobe malfunctions. I was too embarrassed to talk to my mom or even talk to my friends about this, so I learned that silence was the way to survive. At 12, my breasts were super noticeable. I didn't even know I should hide them from boys until boys and men would start doing catcalls as my friends and I walked down the streets. I learned to silence parts of my body so I wouldn't get unwanted attention. I didn't have the words to describe how I felt, but now I know I was being sexualized. I wasn't being seen, valued, or protected as a girl. I was being lusted after for the characteristics of a girl that I embodied. Boys never took the time to get to know me. They just seemed like hounds that viewed girls as meat or prey. As I moved into the adult world and began dating, I felt like men played a game of chase and conquer. If given the chance to get to know me, a man would usually try to push past first base and go straight to home base. In my mind, boys seemed to care about getting to know the real me, but maybe that was the fairy tale that I had always wished for. The soft feminine girl inside me would give the guys what they wanted. It was an effort to be submissive in hopes that guys would like me and want to stay with me. But when relationships didn't work out, sometimes I would feel used and betrayed, partially by the boys, but mostly by the fairy tales. As time went on and various scenarios played out, with usually the same ending, just different characters, I learned not to put my heart out there to be hurt. The hard me, the masculine side that used to punch boys, became my dominant side. I learned to play defense really well. I started feeling like instead of being used, I now had control over situations. I knew that I could use my feminine to keep the upper hand now. I could get almost anything I wanted just because I was a girl. I looked like a girl on the outside, but on the inside, I played the game like a full grown man. I played defense, offense, refereed, and I always won the game. Life and society had taught me how to just not just survive, but to also dominate. I took no prisoners. I worked hard in business and in my personal life. The problem is, I played the game and gotten so good at it that the little innocent, vulnerable girl in me has been silenced. I don't see a need for her. I wish her well, but I don't see a place in this world for her. She's been left in the dark in silence for so long that now I think she's on life support with no signs of being able to function on her own. My feminine has been silenced by my masculine. Dear Gabby, how do I get the innocent little feminine girl back? Or is it even worth trying to resuscitate her? Is she better off staying protected in the shadows? Signed, the man in charge. Whew, that was a lot to unpack. So, at this point, we invite Gabriella to respond. And as you know, Gabby offers her perspective shaped by listening to human stories across cultures, seasons, and relationships. She doesn't just rush to comfort us, she helps us understand. She brings peace and healing, a perspective that helps us to trust our voice again.
Dear the man in charge, I'm going to title this letter, You Don't Need to Kill the Man, You Need to Reassign Him. First, I want to say this plainly. Nothing about your story is weak, dramatic, or exaggerated. What you described is not imagination, it is conditioning. And you adapted the way intelligent, resilient humans do. You learned how to survive in a world that did not protect you. That matters. But now I'm going to challenge you, because you didn't write me to be coddled. Your masculine didn't silence your feminine by accident. He stepped in because she was unprotected, unheard, and left alone too early. That wasn't a takeover. That was a rescue mission. The problem isn't that the man is in charge. The problem is that he never stood down. Here's the truth most people avoid. Your feminine was never meant to run the world, and your masculine was never meant to rule it alone. This is very important. One without the other becomes very distorted. You don't need to resuscitate the girl as she once was. That version existed in a body and a time where she couldn't protect herself. She doesn't need to come back naive or exposed. What does need to come back is her access to the room. Right now, she's not resting in the shadows for safety. She's locked out. So let's talk about balance, not nostalgia. Here are some real practical steps forward. 1. Stop treating vulnerability like a liability. Vulnerability is not the absence of boundaries. It's the ability to feel without immediately armoring up. Start small. Notice when you shut down emotionally before danger is present. Ask yourself, is this protection or habit? 2. Reassign roles instead of firing parts of yourself. Your masculine is excellent at strategy, execution, and protection. Keep him. But he does not get to decide what you feel, who you trust, or when softness is allowed. That's not leadership, that's control. 3. Create spaces where the feminine is safe, not exposed. This might look like creative expression with no performance goal, relationships where emotional pacing is slow, solitude that is nourishing, not isolating. Safety brings softness back naturally, force never will. 4. Let discernment replace dominance. You don't need to win anymore. You need to choose. When you stop playing defense and offense at the same time, you'll notice something surprising. Control was never the same thing as power. 5. Grieve what was taken, without hardening over it. The girl didn't die. She went quiet because no one was listening. Grief doesn't weaken you, it integrates you. Now I'll answer your real question. Is she worth bringing back? Yes. Not because the world is suddenly safe, but because you are no longer a child inside it. Your masculine doesn't need to disappear. He needs to learn how to protect without suffocating. And when that happens, something remarkable occurs. The feminine doesn't have to fight for space. She simply returns, wiser, quieter, and no longer alone. You don't need less strength. You need cooperation. And that's not weakness. That's maturity. With respect and truth, Gabby.
So, this letter was kind of, at first when I read it, it just made me think like, it made me think honestly of The Color Purple, the movie, the book, and it reminded me a girl child ain't safe. And it was kind of funny, but as I read the letter and I started realizing how over time, I think as girls, and maybe even as little boys, we somewhere lose our innocence. You know, boys are taught, stop crying, be a man. And girls are at some point have to learn how to survive in this world, you know, and how many girls get put on a pedestal and get to be just girls. So this letter kind of hit home to me that, and I think most women can, some shape, form, or fashion, say that they've had to stand up, speak for themselves, protect themselves, especially if you're maybe not married or, um, you know, a single parent. And I think sometimes as women, and I'll speak from the women's perspective because I am a woman, but I think from the women's perspective, I see men as like providers or protectors. But that might mean your spouse, your dad, your grandfather, your uncles, your brothers. But what about the rest of the world? What about when a little girl is just being a girl and guys are looking at women for all the physical attributes and not just the pretty face and the hair? They're looking at all the things that signify womanhood. Now, what happens when womanhood is on full display, but she's only 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Something just doesn't sit right with that. And then also, one of the things I was thinking too, as I was reading the letter, listening to Gabby's response, I was thinking to myself, I personally, as an adult now, I find that the clothing that we wear here in the Western society, a lot of it is sports attire, especially for women. When you look at sports, everything is super revealing. When you look at males for sports, they're wearing baggy pants or shorts for basketball. But for women, a lot of the sports clothing are tight clothing, revealing clothing. When it comes to even what we wear just in the casual world, everything is like yoga pants, leggings, everything that pretty much shows your entire shape to the point that I want to say maybe if you have a little inch you can pinch, we're already looking for a corset or some kind of body shaping garment that doesn't even show, that doesn't allow any imperfections to show. So how hard it I'm just thinking like why do we dress like that? Is it because we want to attract the attention or is it because when we do get the attention, it makes us feel validated, makes us feel worthy, makes us feel like we're being recognized. But I'm really wondering, is it being recognized in a good way? I've heard people say any attention or like something like any attention is good attention, like even if it's bad, even if the child is getting reprimanded, they'll take any attention, whether it's good or bad. And I kind of feel like we've grown into that society where we as, and again, I'm speaking from the perspective of women, we as women are not raised to be protected. We're raised to be almost eye candy and sexualized. And men are visual creatures. So this is what they see in it and it arouses them. And so we're basically feeding, or I don't want to say tempting in fear of backlash, but if we walk around, let's say if we were to walk around in an invisible or transparent outfit, of course a man is going to look and, get excited maybe. Maybe even some women might get excited. But it's very similar if we wear form-fitting clothes that are that tight that, it leaves very little to the imagination. So I almost want to challenge society and say, let's think twice about how we dress. I found myself a few months back actually looking for like overalls. It was the holidays, and I ended up buying a onesie, like a lot of people wear them to take Christmas pictures, but I bought them just because I felt like this is just what I want to wear. I don't like always wearing such tight-fitting clothing, and I just feel like, are we putting ourselves on display? Are we falling into like what society wants? And then we just live a cycle of people being sexualized, and that's all it is. Where do we actually get to know each other? And I don't care whether it's a man and a woman, two women as friends, two men as friends, just people getting to know each other. You know, I have this strong belief that a lot of the hatred in this world is because we don't take the time to really get to know each other. But here's the flip side. How vulnerable can you be to other people? I really think that that is earned. I feel like there is a this social me that comes out, but the part of me that can really be vulnerable and introduce someone to the real me, that part has to be protected as well. I just don't come out and tell people all of my innermost secrets and thoughts. Some of that has to be kind of shared for people who can appreciate it. So I think, in a sense, maybe we all kind of keep that innocent, fragile, childlike portion of us hidden or protected. But at some point, I wonder, when do we let that side out? And I think Gabby answered it very well. She gave actually action steps to do to be able to allow that portion of us to come out in a safe space. So I thought this was a really great letter. I definitely enjoyed it. And I do want to say, I would like to hear some feedback. If anybody wants to leave comments, tell me if there's been a time in your life where you've felt like you've either had to grow up too fast because of something, or somehow you lost the innocent part of you that maybe you wish you still had. Um, Also, I'm kind of really enjoying doing these thumbnails for each episode, and I'm finding them kind of, I wish I could take the credit for all of it, but some of it I do just kind of add a little bit to it. I may find a picture and add. And this particular picture, I wanted to have one where it's the feminine and the masculine all in with the same person. So I put her in like a rose gold, and I put him in more dark contrasty colors. And then even with the font, I made his more masculine, hers more submissive and feminine, but it's actually the same person. So I'm having fun with just using my creative side to create these thumbnails. So tell me what you guys think. I'd like to hear your input. And then also, as always, let me bring my other one out. As always, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, and in the description, if you would like to submit your own letter, again, it can be anonymous. If you'd like to submit your own letter to Silence By, feel free to do it. The submission form is in the description below. And remember, as always, even though we call ourselves Silence By, we really are saying silence goodbye because your voice matters. Thank you again, everybody, for listening to another episode of Silence By, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day.